you know? It sometimes feels like media is hyper-focused to small life because it's like, hey, can you be stupider now? Yes, that is a part of it. Intelligence. I've touched on this in another video of mine. Intelligence is a very social concept. That's part of the reason that billionaires are so fucking stupid. You can't have a smart billionaire because by virtue of being a billionaire, somebody is isolated from their fellow man. They start being surrounded by yes men. All of the decisions don't have to really be made by them. All of the hard work gets done behind the scenes. All of the essential components of human life, interacting with people, building connections, like work and, you know, a social life, basically, is off the table for billionaires because of their class interest, because of the position of being at the top so, you know, soundly. It does necessarily cut you off from anybody else. It insulates you from the negative consequences of decision making. It makes you stupider because it isolates you and cuts you off from your fellow man. And as a result, if an intelligent person becomes a billionaire, they will not be intelligent for very long. Because intelligence is something that you can only engage in and, well, gauge, measure, whatever. You can only exercise or have intelligence in the context of human society. If you're removed from that, you're no longer intelligent. And you get dumber over time. You know, does that make sense? Yeah, everything in your entire body is a muscle. And when you're a billionaire, you stop having to exercise those muscles as much. You do it purely because you want to. But a lot of intelligence is developed out of necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention. People don't adapt unless they have to. And when you're a billionaire, there is no kind of person in the world that has to exercise their muscles, including their brain, and adapt less than a billionaire. Of course they're going to be stupider. They are the most idle class of person. They're not exercising anything by necessity. Trying to tell the average person that too much money would hurt someone makes their mind explode. Yeah, it does. And that's partly because of that manufactured narrative that, like, hey, you should all want to be billionaires. Effectively, you know what people are chasing? When people chase the idea of becoming a millionaire, finally, or becoming a billionaire even, finally finishing that road to success, they're chasing death. People don't realize it. The finality of being wealthy, the ultimate finality of being wealthy, moving away, completely insulating yourself from the rest of society, that is you wanting to die. That's what that is. People don't realize it, but that is what people are chasing. To live is to engage with society. To live is, in some measure, to struggle. You know, life isn't easy. In their mind, they think they're chasing paradise. Yeah, because most of these people believe in heaven after they die. They believe in, like, an eternal paradise in the sky or whatever. Same goes for political social media giants, at least on the right wing. Yeah, well, I mean, most of them are, you know, billionaires. And part of that class that insulates them from broader society. Makes sense? They don't ever want to think about what happens after they're a billionaire. Exactly. And fundamentally, that is because in most people's minds, and it's partially reflected in the reality, nothing happens. Things stop happening. At least from your perspective. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I hit the mic again. At least from your perspective, if you become a billionaire, if you become so wealthy, you never have to worry about anything happening ever again, things stop happening. Effectively, you start to die. And people are chasing that. Forever based to think the status quo is the enemy of all things. It is, because status quo, the more the status quo remains the same, the more systemic flaws fester, the more problems go unaddressed, the worse they become, the more suffering it sows, and the more it actually just destroys society, you know? Society as a project, you know, the body politic as a project is one of being active, engaging with people, and like, you know, trying to alleviate that suffering or, you know, iron it out at a systemic level so it can no longer be produced, you know? But people don't want to think that. People literally, they are chasing the notion of becoming a billionaire before all else because they want to, well, not worry about those flaws. Scientifically, it's been proven that when people don't need to think as much, they stop being present. Yeah. Yeah, it is, in a way, it is a form of torture, putting somebody in a box with nothing to do, even if it is a fucking padded, you know, cushioned, like, gold-plated box. It'd be the most comfortable box in the world. You're still languishing in misery. None of these billionaires are happy people, believe you me. Have you seen how much of Elon Musk fucking tweets, how insecure he is, how much ketamine he does? The man is not happy. You know? Capitalism is just as bad for the capitalists, in a way, as it is for everybody else. Even though it may be more physically endangering and emotionally endangering to people who have to engage in everyday struggle, you know, because they risk active threat of, like, starvation and deprivation and stuff like that. That's not to say it doesn't have a massively deleterious effect on the people who, at a material level, benefit from it in some way. The inactivity, as you outlined, Gotron, scientists have literally found that, like, prolonged inactivity will start, you know, your brain and your muscles start to atrophy. A lot of these billionaires are massively insecure. Everybody at an intuitive level understands that nobody should have a fucking $1 billion. Which is why every billionaire and every, you know, person who's wealthier than God is so insecure and eager to prove that they earned it and deserve it. Because it's more wealth than anybody could ever decide, like, what to do with. Other than sit on idly. Have you seen how mentally ill rich people are? It's a miracle they exist. Unironically, the strongest argument for meritocracy, insofar as millionaires and billionaires, is that they haven't killed themselves yet for how miserable they are. That is probably the strongest argument you could make, that, wow, being a billionaire makes you so miserable, antisocial, and, like, insecure that it is crazy that none of these people have killed themselves yet. And it's probably because just that they're also incredibly ego-driven and sociopathic and have a very high opinion of themselves, which nonetheless does still create an impressive picture of somebody who's able to, like, cast themselves into a mental hole that I wouldn't even dream of. And I've had suicidal ideation in the past. This is, like, that would be bad even for me. You know? And then they're like, I don't want to kill myself, actually. And then they proceed to still do nothing and behave almost as though they were dead, until such time that their class interest is threatened, at which point, you know, they are quick to defend it. That's all people really have at that point. Being a billionaire makes you so little of a person that really all you have left is your class and status. Because it's hard to relearn how to engage with society. You know? I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. Yeah, in a way, I think, you know, I'm not like a psychologist or anything, but yeah, it would make sense that, like, the causing of suffering is sort of a confirmation to billionaires that they do still exist, that they're still alive, that their actions have some sort of consequence, because they're constantly in a bubble. And when I say in a bubble, that does mean, you know, they're, like, super out of touch in the colloquial sense, but also it means, like, you're a brain in a vat. How do you know anything that you do when you're that cut off has any meaning? Well, you'll see in the headlines if you make a decision that results in, like, thousands of people dying. And that's not in the active thought process, but I'm sure that exists at some level. It's like a psychosexual thing. It is so basic that, like, every billionaire is driven to it. Maybe that's why they try to get more money, to try to think of something to do. Yeah, and that kind of becomes the only thing they know how to do after a certain point. You know? And it's not like you need to be all that good at it, because once you have enough money, it just kind of snowballs. You don't need to be good at amassing money to amass money. You just have to have money. Hello, Editing Y2K here. This is just one part of a multi-part series of me ranking all the ideologies that I know enough about to comment on. It took place over the course of 2 live streams earlier in the year, and the other parts will be all available on a playlist if you're interested. Please check it out, and thank you for watching.